Welcome to episode 20 of Rabbit Hole Reviews. Today's episode is going to be on a Smith & Wesson Model 60. In this case, you're looking at a Model 60-14 with a 2.1 inch barrel. Now, the Model 60 has been in continuous production since 1965, and when it came out, it was the first regular production revolver made in stainless steel. So at the time, it was there was like a 6-month waiting list to get one of these just because of that. And just a really nice revolver overall. This video is going to be shorter than most, mainly because, well, I don't know a lot about revolvers in general. And two, this is one of the few snub-nose revolvers I have. And I don't know a lot about it, to be honest. I should probably know more before I make these videos, but we'll go over the information that I have and my anecdotal experiences with it. So for roughly the first 30 years of production, from 1965 through 1996, the Model 60 was chambered in 38 special only. So in 1996, they came out with a J-frame, smaller. It's a stronger frame than what was originally on this revolver, and that allowed them to, well, strengthen the revolver and lengthen the cylinder to make it chambered in 357 as well. And I think that's really the model that you want to go for if you're looking for a Model 60. They're all going to be in that spec at this point. If you get one that's not, it's going to be an older gun. Now this one has the trigger lock. It's a more recent production revolver. It is what it is. I don't have the key for this, so if it ever got locked by somebody, I wouldn't have the key to unlock it. So in one of my other videos, I talked about how I dislike the trigger locks on revolvers, and that applies to this as well. So I bought this one used, and I think that's really what you would want to do too. MSRP on these is pretty expensive. I think they're in the $600 range, mid to high sixes, somewhere around there. And, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Maybe you can get it cheaper. You probably can. But of course, used on the secondary market, whether it be a gun auction site or a pawn shop or a gun shop, or maybe a gun show, depending on how your luck goes, is really where you want to find one of these. I don't think people run a ton of rounds through revolvers in general. This is not a competition gun. So being that it's concealed carry, snub nose, probably not a whole lot of rounds get run through these, and probably less so in 357 Magnum. I think most people are shooting, regular white box grade 38 special through it. So you can pick up a used one for several $100s less, and it's not a high wear item, When I've shot this gun, now I of course have shot it with weak 38s, the wad cutters, all the way up to 357 Magnum. In 357 Magnum, this definitely has a little bit of recoil. It is snappy, as to be expected, because the weight comes in at 22.5 ounces. We'll put it on the scale here in a minute to test that weight, and we'll see what the weight is with 5 rounds. Now, this is a 5-shot cylinder. You do sacrifice a little bit in capacity because of the overall size of it. On video, the way the camera angle is, it really doesn't show how small this revolver is, but as you see my hand come out of the right-hand side of the screen, there's just not a whole lot to hold on to. Now, it doesn't have I have fairly large hands, and my pinky finger's not sliding off the end. So it's not as small as some revolvers I've seen out there. We'll go ahead and check clear. It is clear. And while we're up here, we can take a look at the sights. So the sights are fixed. Not bad. I wish this had some sort of high vis on it. I'm sure you could retrofit that. I think all concealed revolvers should have some sort of high vis front or even a tritium front, based on the fact that it has a very short sight radius. It's a 2-inch barreled revolver. I think you really need all the help you can get. I'm picking up a Taurus snub nose here in a few weeks, and that has a tritium front post, and we'll take a look at that one when that comes in. But shooting this is quite nice, even in 357 Magnum. Now, there's a little bit of learning curve to get over it. It's a 2-inch barreled 22.5 ounce revolver, so there's going to be a lot of muzzle flash and a lot of muzzle flip. But once you get over that, it's doable, right? Let's put it on the scale real fast without further ado. Let's see what it comes in at. Once again, my scale is deciding to See if it works or not. Oh, here we go. Let's zero it out. All right. Wow, so it's exactly as published, 22.58 ounces. Now, if you were to carry it with 357 Magnum rounds, what I have here is 5 rounds of 158 grain PMC, jacketed soft points, 357 Magnum. We'll see what that brings the weight up to. I think these weigh roughly an ounce apiece. So 25.47 ounces. So we'll round that up to 25.5. So not terrible. Would I carry it with 357 Magnum? That's a good question. Probably not. I would probably opt for some plus Ps just because I think, you know, the distances that you're shooting this at and the fact that you have 5 rounds, you have limited capacity, you need every one of those rounds to count. So I think shooting 357 Magnum, if you're not a very experienced shooter, you're going to give up a lot in terms of muzzle blast and recoil and everything else. And like I said, you've got 5 rounds to drop your target. Not to mention if you have multiple targets. So I would probably opt with a good solid plus P round and consider that good enough. Plus P is no slouch. And remember, it's coming out of a 2-inch barrel. So you're going to lose some velocity anyway in 357 Magnum. But yeah, would I carry this revolver? No, I wouldn't, but not because it's not reliable and it's not effective at what it does. I'm more of a semi-auto guy, especially when it comes to CCW. That's just my manual of arms that I'm used to. I like having capacity and speed of reloading. There's other factors in there. And as far as being a home defense pistol, if this is the only revolver you have, then yes, it can do the job. But as you notice, there's no provision here to have any sort of light added or anything like that. So PID is going to be, well, that's going to be hit or miss. And so for that reason, I'm not a big fan of this revolver for home defense. And as far as collectability, well, this is a current production gun that's been in ball production since 1965. So they've got at least 14 different iterations of it. I wouldn't say these are collectible, so at least not yet. And I would say these are good buys in the used market. Now, if you can't find one or if you just have to have new, by all means, spend the money. But these can be had for considerably less used, and there's plenty of these out there. And of course, I would opt for a later production, 1996 or later production, which is probably what you're going to find anyway. Yes, you'll have things like trigger locks, but it gives you the option to fire a 357 Magnum, which even if you don't continuously feed this revolver that round, you at least want to have the option. Even though I think 90% of the time people are staying in the 38 special zone with this. And I think that's totally fine. So other versions of this revolver came out with a 1.8 7-inch barrel, a 3-inch barrel version, and a 5-inch. So I like this revolver enough to where I think I'm going to buy either a 3-inch or a 5-inch just to have another one in my collection. And when the Taurus comes out, or when I get the Taurus in inventory, we'll take a look at that. That's really all I have for this. We'll do some trigger pulls real quick. And so you're looking at roughly 25.5 ounces loaded with 5 357 Magnum rounds. Fixed sights, exposed hammer. You could definitely carry this revolver. And I would do it if I didn't have other pistols in inventory. So let's take a look and see what the trigger pulls are. I did a couple of these off camera, and they came in at like the 12-pound range, double action. And that seems about right. It's kind of difficult to get trigger pulls on this simply because there's not a whole lot to hang on to. So we'll check that the revolver is clear. Don't want to put a round through my palm, do I? Let's see if I can hang on to this thing without dragging the cylinder as I do it. It's going to be pretty heavy, but the trigger pulls are quite nice. The trigger on this is actually quite good. So believe me, that's not an expert opinion. It just feels good. So let's see what the double actions come in at. So 13.2 pounds. I think we can get it lighter than that. 12.2 pounds. I think it's in the 12-pound range. 13 pounds. 12 pounds. A lot of variation in that. 12.2 pounds. So between 12 and 13 pounds, we're going to go with that. That's more than likely the trigger that you're going to use anyway. I would think that when you draw this revolver and engage a target, it's going to be in double action pretty much all 5 times. 2.6 pounds. I don't imagine someone taking the time to cock the hammer, at least on the initial shot, or especially the follow-up shots. Who's got time for that? 3 pounds. So when I take this revolver out, which isn't very often, but when I do, I shoot it in double action only pretty much 90% of the time for that reason, in anticipation of having to use it in a defense scenario. 2.8 pounds. We'll do one more. I'm going to practice putting rounds on target as quickly as I can in double action only. All right, so 3 pounds. So roughly between 2.8 and 3 pounds. Trigger pulls on the single action and double action are quite good. So I think that's probably what you get over something like a Taurus. You're going to get a little bit smoother trigger. Build quality is very nice on these. This is the kind of revolver you could pass down to someone. It's not some, rattle trap economy gun. You do pay a premium up front, but I think you get your money's worth. But again, like I talked about earlier, I would probably go the used route just because, these things out of the box are, I don't know, street prices are probably in the 600 range and maybe a little bit less, but definitely around 600, I would think. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. And I think the secondary market is really where you get a very, very clean examples pretty much all day long because people don't run these very often. It's not a target revolver. It's a smaller overall package designed for concealed carry. So people don't run these, and they don't really run them in 357 Magnum continuously, even though it's it can handle it. So that's pretty much all I have for you on this one. Try to keep these videos short. This has been episode 20, a quick look at the Smith & Wesson Model 60 and 38 Special / 357 Magnum.